What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. This is the podcast where you can hear the real stories behind the people on social media. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly, and before we jump into today's conversation with Methodbox, there's a couple things that we need to go over first. Number one, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please consider leaving a rating and a review. The more positive ratings and reviews we get, the more it helps new people find the show, and it really helps to grow the community that we're developing here. And if you're one of those people that have recently found the podcast, welcome. I'm very excited to have you here. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes. And to everybody listening, make sure you screenshot this, post it to your Instagram story, tag at My Social Life Podcast, and I'll feature you on the account and send you a message as well. Now, without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Methodbox. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. Today, I'm joined by Methodbox, and Methodbox's brothers Nathan and Jonathan, and their goal is to teach you how to grow and establish your own brand by talking to people that have grown and established theirs. And on top of that, they're going to teach you by documenting how they're growing and establishing their brand. And I'm very excited to have them here on the podcast today. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you. That was so eloquently put. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited to have you guys here. And so for the first little bit here, it's going to be not necessarily individual, but I kind of want to get a bit of a backstory on each of you guys, just to kind of give people context before we dive into the full Methodbox story. So Jonathan, so you guys are situated in LA, and Jonathan, I believe you moved out there around 2009, correct?
That's spot on. Yeah. I actually just made my 10-year anniversary at the start of September. So I've been out here 10 years. We're both from Chicago. We're brothers. I'm older than Nathan, and yeah, I did film school, I did the whole thing, and I flocked out here with a bunch of fellow film graduates, and we had this beautiful network of just film people doing things out here. And I kind of just bid my time now in retrospect is what it felt like waiting for Nathan to come out here, oddly enough. And he was California dreaming. And I say that because I was, directing music videos and kind of refining my chops from a directorial point of view and maybe even a cinematographer point of view. And Nathan was, had YouTube on the brain, and I had no idea until he came out here. But yeah, it's been 10 years for me out here.
That's awesome. And you said you produced music videos. Can you kind of say any of the artists that you've worked with over the course of the last 10 years?
Yeah, so they're not huge artists, but I've worked with an electronic duo called Below Me, and I did a couple of music videos for them. I worked with a hip hop artist called Habit Blacks, and I did a few videos for them. I got a buddy who does pop music. His name is Adrian Mitchell. I did a few videos for them. And the beauty of music videos is you're able to take an idea, whether it's just some visual device, and you're able to expound on it for the course of that video and really just have fun with it. So indirectly, I was realizing that I was kind of learning how to accomplish that, like how to if I had an idea of a route I wanted to go in visually, it gave me this arena to explore that, which really lent itself nicely to starting YouTube videos, which ultimately is where the story ends up going when Nathan comes out here and we partner up.
I was going to say, and then so Nathan, Jonathan mentioned how you kind of had the California bug, and that was, I think it was after your first year of college where you kind of made the decision that you wanted to move out there, right?
Correct. So I had finished high school and I was on course to go to a community college, and I had done my first year there, but it didn't go too well. I had failed the majority of my classes, and I was kind of at that point in my life where mentally I needed some sort of reset to just kind of have a new situation from the current situation I was in. I had been in my current hometown for 19 years at that point. I had a lot of dreams and aspirations for different things I wanted with my life. YouTube was a big part of my adolescence. I grew up with it, whereas most people, they tend to grow up with movies or TV. But for me, I was kind of being brought up in this new era of YouTube. So it had a big influence on my life, I would say, to the point where as I got older, I started to think about how I could implement this platform, YouTube, as a way to make money or make a career out of it. And so I had started dabbling, making my own videos. I had a tech channel called Tech Hunt on YouTube, where I made like reviews of laptops and different gadgets that I would find on Amazon. And that was going fine, but it wasn't until that I had failed college that my parents were like, something's got to change. And I'm like, you're right. And so I called up Jonathan and we actually made it happen. I told him, hey, what do you think about the chances of me coming out to LA? You know, LA had been painted as this place where all your dreams come true. That's what the idea you see of it on TV and in the media. So it was a big step for me. And it was a big deal that I was going to leave this small suburbia town in Illinois to LA, this grand city. And it was exciting. And it's probably one of the best decisions that I've made so far in my life.
Mm-hmm. And so does Tech Hunt, you said it was Tech Hunt was a channel, right?
Correct.
So does that channel still exist? Because I know if my research is correct, you had a video hit over 60,000 views, right?
Yeah. So that channel is what Methodbox is today. We made all the videos. We archived them all. They're all private. They still exist. We didn't delete them. They're still there. But because Methodbox or Tech Hunt at the time, I had grown somewhat of a following because you're right, that video had 66,000 views. It was a laptop review I did on the best budget laptop of 2017. And, you know, I was getting views with these videos that I was putting out, but I wanted to kind of shift the view and like the content of the channel now that I was out in LA and Jonathan and I had started to collaborate together and work on this project, Methodbox. So that's when we decided to kind of make all the videos private because I had around like 120, I think, somewhere around there.
142 subscribers.
142 subscribers on that channel. And we figured that's better than 0. So we'll just start with 142 and build from there.
And you know what, Jacob, what's interesting is that Nathan he's got a really good instinct for what is good for YouTube. What is a good YouTube video? You know, a lot of participating in this platform is trying to understand on a week-to-week basis what's going to hit, what's going to be a searchable topical video, and how to package that. So much of it, you know, it's one thing to go make a video and put, you know, your heart and soul for a week or two into it, and then for no one to see it. You know, it's all about the packaging, right? You always hear it's all about the thumbnail and the keywords and the title and the description and all that, and it's so true. So, but Nathan, and we're still trying to figure that out, by the way, with every video that we come up with, and we have programs that we use. Morning Fame, we just got onto that, but we'll probably get into that here in a little bit. But my point is that he's got really good instincts for what could be topical or what could be super searchable. And I mean, it was probably that video that he just described, the best budget laptop of 2017 at the time. Within 6 months, it had hit like 66,000 views. I mean, who knows where Nathan left his own devices before I come into the picture, where his channel would be, you know?
Before we dive into like Methodbox and how it all came together, where you decided to private all those videos, I want to ask you a question because I feel like you both will have differing opinions on this. Where do you guys kind of land on with post-secondary education right now? Because I feel like it's a bit of a hot button topic and people debate both sides. Some people think it's important. Some people think it's kind of on the way out. So what are your opinions on that, especially when you factor in the fields that you both work in and where you're trying to take your brand?
Yeah. Is it all right if I take the lead on this one? So I'm torn on college in general. To the topic of college, does one need to go to college in general? Because I think something has happened to our educational system in the last 5 to 10 years, and it's definitely not worth. I don't know if it's worth the inflated price tag. There is, since the advent of the internet, there has been so much information out there. But I will say this. If you can manage to figure out the financial point, what I mean by that is, you know, make it cheap on yourself or cheaper on yourself by getting grants or scholarships. For me, basically minimize the amount of debt that you're going to have when you leave it. Maybe you do go to a community college the first couple of years and then you finish off at a university. If the money thing doesn't become a factor because you've creatively figured that out, I think it is a benefit, especially and I include entrepreneurs, and I'm referring to myself and Nathan in that because that is what we're doing with this YouTube thing and what we're trying to do, what we're trying to build. I include entrepreneurs in that because I think someone like Nathan, who essentially we're in video production every week with these videos, content creating. Do I think he needs to go to film school like I did? Did I need to go to film school? I think the answer to that is no. I don't think that's necessary anymore, especially with things like YouTube where you can go learn, there's so many tutorials on anything from production to post-production. But I would say it would be beneficial for someone like Nathan to go to college for business, and you go to a good college that has a great program for that. That program, that university will probably teach you things that you didn't know you needed to know. We don't know what we don't know. So yes, my final answer is someone like Nathan, an entrepreneur, should probably go to college, but not for video production or film, but for something that can further just his overall knowledge. Then he can go on and build a business in whatever he wants. That's my stance on it.
Yeah, so the topic of college is obviously kind of tricky because there's no one umbrella answer that umbrellas over everybody. And when Jonathan and I created our video on me dropping out of college, we had to have an unbiased kind of approach to it. We had to take both sides and list out the pros and cons to see to give it an even give it an even playing field and weigh all the options. So during this process, I started to realize that, okay, there are definitely benefits of going to school. For example, it can be really tricky to be self-disciplined, and school can kind of give you a good structure to have. It gives you a schedule where you're able to follow classes. You're able to go to see specific. You go and get specific credits for specific things, and you have a goal that you're reaching. And each class you complete, you're slowly getting closer and closer to that goal. Whereas if you don't go to college and you're kind of just building something on your own, you have to have a lot of self accountability, and to the point where you have to be very self-disciplined, and you have to basically want it as much as something that basically there's no structure there for you to follow. So everything you do has to be on your own. And that can be very difficult for some people. And for me, it was as well, because it's super easy to be lazy. And I think that's something that everybody has to deal with. But the other caveat is when you're going to school, it's easy to get into this rut where you feel like you're unmotivated. You're not really doing anything that you're passionate about. And it's not exciting. And you're always thinking about the things you want to be doing versus actually doing them. So when I did take a break from school, I remember it feeling like a relief, because I had all this time to focus on things I was actually passionate about, all these things I wanted to do. And at the end of the day, like I said, it comes down to personal preference, and if you think you can succeed in life with or without school. But I think it is important for people to know, especially because I didn't know this at a young age, and that's that, if you don't go to college, it's not the end of the world. You have your whole life ahead of you. There's so many different avenues of success. There's no one set path. And I remember having that crippling feeling of having to tell my parents that I didn't want to go, and feeling like the world was coming down on me. And that's just one of the points that I want to stress is that it's not the end of the world. And I know a lot of people are in my boat. So I just wanted to give my perspective on that.
I agree with a bunch of different things that you guys said. But what I did want to dive into was Methodbox. And when you decided you kind of needed that break after going to college for the first time there, so you kind of had the concept in your brain, I think, before making the move, but you guys really hashed it out together over that road trip from Illinois to LA, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
We had a conversation on that road trip that really kind of solidified the brand of Methodbox and where it was going to go, because I was kind of lost in the air with what the next step for my tech channel would be, because I knew I still wanted to encompass some kind of technology, but I also wanted it to kind of make it about my life and things I was actually interested in, and make meaningful content that wasn't just, objective reviews on things. So that's when Jonathan kind of helped me, and with his skills of being someone that's in this film industry and has his refined chops of storytelling, we collaborated on an idea of how we could work together to create something.
And so why branding? What drew you towards that as a topic and kind of the focal point of your channel?
Well, while we were deliberating over what could be a good avenue to pursue, I think when it popped into our heads to focus on branding, one of the things that we realized was, well, we know we need to go niche. We need to be real niche because that's what succeeds. But I mean, as artists, we want to feel free to collaborate with whomever we want, our videos to be made in whatever style. We basically wanted to retain creative control without having to narrow our vision at any given point. So we realized that the beauty of branding, I mean, it's kind of a multi-layered thing. The one thing is it's niche enough where we could say we're here to help people build their brands, but it's broad enough that that can encompass anything really. So it gives us a bit of a tagline while still being able to retain that sense of doing whatever we want. The other thing about it, I would say, is that there's an energy behind building something, and everyone is trying to build something, whether it's a company or it's an Instagram page or it's a journal, whatever it is. Someone's building something, a career. So there's an energy behind that, and I think innate in that thing is story. And you'll hear me say this all the time. Everything has to go back to the story. And someone's trying to build a brand. Well, right there you have the inciting incident, and you have the beginning of some rising action. That then implies that the character is going to go somewhere. If we're building a brand, it's like, well, let's see where that character goes. So storytelling is part of that.
I remember one of the things that Jonathan told me when we were kind of coming up with this idea of Methodbox. He was an example of, I don't know if you named a specific rapper, but they talk about how a rapper will start at point A and then he'll start rapping into songs about how he's made it. And then next thing you know, he's on a song with Kanye West. But then it's like, wait a second. Well, how did you get from point A to this point where now you're on a song with Kanye West? So we wanted to focus on that middle part where we actually show real life examples of what it's like to build a brand.
No, I really like that. Like, honestly, like I hadn't heard of your guys' channel prior to Carla kind of showing it to me. But once I did, I like loved the concept. And when I was doing some prep work, I really did like a deep dive on your content. And I'm curious as to like what happened when you first arrived in LA. Did you kind of hit the ground running? Because watching a couple of your early videos, like it looks like you guys went and got some like hats made and stuff and some stickers. And so what was kind of like that first little while in LA once you arrived? Like, did you really dive right into it, or did you kind of do some planning before?
Well, when I first arrived, there was definitely that magic in the air we had this brand idea. When anybody comes up with a brand for the first time, they're super excited about it. That's all their life revolves around for the beginning. So yeah, I would say we did hit the ground running. We actually had produced 2 videos right away, and we hadn't even put the 2 videos out that we had produced until December, and then we put those 2 videos out back to back. So they were kind of like in the queue waiting while we were working on Methodbox behind the scenes. So we were working on it for a while before it really even went public. And when we mean public, I mean just like it being on YouTube. No one was really even watching it, but us back then. But yeah, it was super exciting. I remember we would spend hours at cafes drinking coffee, talking about all these steps we need to do. We had like vision boards for our brand. We had like screenshots from multiple videos. We had like lists of hundreds of people that we wanted to collaborate with. We got our trademark done for Methodbox. It was like our whole life revolved around Methodbox, and it was a really exciting time. I remember thinking back to that time and it being very magical.
And in a way, our life still totally revolves around Methodbox, but in a different way. I mean, you have to take that energy and settle into it so that it's a feasible. You can move forward with it in a feasible way, while still having your life kind of revolve around it.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of like your lives revolving around Methodbox, I know shortly after arriving in LA, you guys ended up deciding to get a house. Ultimately, I do know that there was some living like reasoning for getting that house because there's not enough place in the apartment, but it was also a place for you guys to create videos. So can you talk to me about when you guys decided to get the house and that whole process? And I believe you guys were on house hunters as well too.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Every YouTuber, you have a channel, and just like a writer writes what they know, just by by the nature that your location is going to be a character in the story of your channel, because it's going to just be in the setting all the time. So in a way, you kind of have to plan or think carefully as to what you want that setting to be, because it's going to influence your vibe and ultimately your brand. So in our case, yes, it was more of a logistic thing. I mean, do we want our brand to be, a house in the where do we live, in the valley? Do we want that to be our vibe? Not necessarily. I mean, if we could have it our way, we probably would be in a loft in downtown LA or something. But so yeah, it was more of a practical, logistical thing where we need a place. We need a place to live. My original roommate, her name is Robin. Didn't want to lose her. It's really hard. LA is its own animal. It's its own beast. It's actually the market out here, the real estate market and the living market. It's part of a world market. I would even argue that it's the most desirable city to live in this country. It's where people usually flock to out of which is why it's such an inflated price to live out here. So all that said, you need a roommate, and finding a good one is super hard. And if you find one, you want to keep them. A good one, you want to keep them. So when Nathan was like, yeah, hey, I want to go out there, I immediately knew, all right, well, now there's going to be 3 of us, and it's going to make way more sense to buy a house than it is going to be to try to afford a 3-bedroom apartment. And then that's when I kind of got the ball rolling on finding a house. And my real estate agent, who I was fortunate enough to find, because I did vet a lot of them, because I ultimately wanted somebody that could be creative with me. And I'm not a rich guy. And buying a house in LA is kind of a big deal. So I needed someone that can help me craft some kind of creative ways to actually make this happen. And I found a good one. And she's the one who told me about House Hunters, that she was going to be on the show, and she thought I would be a perfect candidate to like play with her. And I'm like, well, if you're going to do this, Nathan, my brother, and Robin, my roommate, they'd have to be characters in this episode as well. And the producers ultimately loved it. And then I think it was 1 month of Nathan being out here, and he was instantly already on a reality TV show. So it's like, welcome to LA,
That's awesome. And so did you guys get any followers or anything from that? Like, did people come to Methodbox through your feature on House Hunters?
I don't think so, but I remember when we put out that episode, we were kind of scared because we had recorded some like behind the scenes from when we were on the House Hunter set, and they really made it a point to tell us like, hey, you can't be recording this, it can't get out. So I remember us trying to be like a little sneaky with it, because some of that footage ended up making the cut, but we tried portraying the video in a way, as far as tags at least, where we put Nathan and Jonathan, House Hunters, Three's Company in the Valley, which is the title of our episode. So we kind of like did play to it a bit, but no one like explicitly said in the comments that they're coming from the show itself. However, a few months ago, I guess there was a rerun of our episode, because
it finally just launched,
or something happened, but like within 1 weekend, we got like 5 different DMs from completely different people saying, "Oh my God, you're on TV right now." So I was like, "Oh, our episode must be airing right now on HGTV." But other than that, no, we had never had anybody come out and straight out tell us that they've recognized us or have seen us originally,
and that's why they subscribed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair, but I mean, it's still a pretty cool experience to be on reality TV, and it must be cool to see yourself kind of up there on this. I mean, you see yourself on the screen all the time through YouTube, but you also are on this reality TV, which kind of leads me into the question of traditional versus digital. Like, have you guys noticed anything kind of like between doing what you do on YouTube and doing what you do on House Hunters? Is it more rewarding, obviously, to do YouTube, or was House Hunters cool because of the gravitas of it being a traditional medium, you being on TV?
No, the being on TV thing, I think we thought it would be more fun. It ended up being way more work. It ended up not being worth it. Like the novelty of it, the novelty of, hey, we're on House Hunters is kind of cool. But no, it's far more rewarding to make our own content for, our subscriber base. But there are some similarities between just the nature of reality TV and what we're doing. So one of the things I've had to get used to in making video content, I think Nathan is a little bit more, he plays to it well. than I do. I've always been used to being behind the camera, but when you're building a channel or you're building a brand on whatever social media platform, you kind of have to be the face of it. So I've had to learn how to be a host, a co-host of this thing and be in front of the camera. And, you're watching myself every week or however often we post videos. I mean, you're learning a lot about your own self, your own presentation of yourself, which is kind of interesting. And in the beginning, we've been at it for about a year and a half, but the first half of the year, I was like, oh, is that how I say, that whole thing? Is that how I talk? Is that how I say that? Is that how I look? Because in my mind, I thought I was smiling more when I said that or whatever, but apparently I have a resting bitch face when I say that thing, So it's being cognizant in real life of basically I'm a lot more animated now because I've realized I've had to turn up the volume and how I present myself, and that's something that being in front of the camera has taught me. And the last thing I'll say about that is we've kind of been characters, not just hosts, but characters in our own storyline that we've created. And a lot of that is by design. From the very beginning, we knew exactly that there was going to be a narrative arc to our entire channel. We weren't just going to miscellaneously put out videos. We were going to put out content, but have it go somewhere so that people can follow us on this journey. And that's part of building the brand, and that was the first time we're fans of getting meta. That was the first time that we got meta, is when we finally said, hey, yeah, let's do this. Let's show people how to build a brand. That'll be our thing. Or let's talk about brand building, but let's do it by us being the example. And that was the first instance of us being meta. And we kind of have hit the ground running with that concept ever since. So we try to find a lot of ways to be, and when we say meta, we mean self-referential and in like a creative way, self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned like hitting the ground running and how it was within the first month you were on House Hunters, and you really had like your first year on YouTube was really like a whirlwind. And I kind of want to touch on some pivotal moments from that first year. The first one obviously being Colin and Samir, because I believe it was like within a week of you putting out a video breaking down their channel, you were sitting down for coffee with those guys, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was kind of surreal how fast it happened, because we were kind of had this new concept for this channel, and it was our first time ever really making a video where we were kind of publicly like talking about someone else on the platform. So to have them respond to that and them being who they are, or like who they were to us, like they were a big influence to us at the time and still are, but to have them reach out to us and invite us out to coffee with them really made us realize how open and how possible and how, I guess, fun this experience is really going to be. And I think that is a big reason why we continue to just keep going at the energy and the caliber that we did at that time.
That's such an interesting point you just made, Nathan, about that idea that, so the point I made was that we're characters in this thing that we're creating, this journey. But yeah, it becomes interactive when now you have other content creators that they're on their own journey where they're their own characters on their own channel. And now we're interacting with them. It becomes an interactive experience. So it almost feels like we are on our own TV show, but we're interacting with reality, or, like other people in reality. So like life and art, I guess ultimately what I'm saying, becomes blurred. And it's such a surreal, cool feeling.
I was going to say, because I watched the video where you guys met them in person. And can you kind of share what you guys talked about then? Because I think you said something along the lines of like you guys talked about strategy and they gave them tips and you kind of talked to them about their channel. Can you share a little bit about what you talked about when you met them for the first time?
Yeah. So the interesting thing was the reason why they wanted to meet us was we just wanted to, I think we kind of put it out. So, right, I guess let's bring it down to, we made a video where we broke down our two favorite channels at the time, and they were one of them. And we couldn't articulate in the video, in a concise way what their tagline was. Now we can. I think they've refined that, but at the time we couldn't. And what we didn't know was that they had kind of, at the time, were trying to figure out what they should be. And so when we sent them our video through Twitter, they latched onto that and they wanted to talk to us about. That's why they wanted to meet, because they wanted to hear more about why we couldn't articulate that.
There was a specific line that I said in the video where Jonathan's like, or I say, Colin and Samir, they make videos about what do they make videos about? And I think that was the line, which we actually thought about editing out at the time. But that was the line that actually ended up landing us the coffee meeting with them.
So when we actually met, it very much then became, they showed up with the camera, we showed up with the camera, which that in itself is always, YouTube life. Everyone's just aware that, you're going to have a camera. So, and that's going to be part of the interaction. It's kind of interesting. Not always, but it very much became two channels that were giving each other advice. I think our advice to them was that we felt that the thing that they were good at was, do you watch Colin and Samir at all? Like, do you know what they do now?
I've watched a few of their videos. I've listened to their podcast though more than I've watched their videos.
So they make great videos. They're basically like somewhere between documentarians and news anchors. So they'll pick a topic that's super topical right now. They'll have an interesting thought on it, just a simple one interesting thought on it, and then they'll make a whole like mini doc style on that thing, but they present it to you like news anchors. So at the time, like now that's been way more refined, and that they even have, it's one of their series, and which has kind of become their main jam. It's called The Breakdown. So at the time, when they were kind of still more miscellaneous with the content they were putting out, we were like, we think that's cool. And we think you guys are like news anchors, but like internet news anchors and like pretty hip. And they were like, okay, all right. And I think they took that to heart because that was something that they needed to hear at that time. As far as the advice they gave us, we were a brand spanking new channel. So they gave us all the things we needed to hear, like that we needed to be more focused on having an audience of one. I remember it's more important to make something for a specific person than it is for everyone. What were some of the other things, Colin?
The idea behind that first one is that the person who's watching, like the audience of one thing, the person that's watching that specific thing, they feel more likely to be connected to that piece of content versus someone that's watching it and it feels like you're just broadly talking to a wide audience. Some of the other things I said is like really hooking your audience within like the first 10 seconds of the video, really focusing on the story. I think at the time we had put out like a video that was like 18 minutes long. So they said maybe focus on making videos that are shorter and like more impactful, or the video that we did on them when we talked about our two favorite channels, they recommended maybe that could have been 2 videos and you could have gotten more exposure through that way. So it was a lot of us learning like basic things because we were a new channel, and then us explaining to them how we view them as an audience member.
VidCon was the second pivotal moment, as far as I can tell. And from my understanding, you guys went there to meet people in the NoSmallCreator movement. So before we talk about VidCon, can you kind of talk about what the NoSmallCreator movement is and why it resonated so much with you guys?
Yeah, so there is this vlogger that I had gotten recommended a video from, and his name was Cody Wanner. And at the time, he had maybe 2,000 subscribers, and he was a daily vlogger who you could tell was kind of heavily inspired by Casey Neistat, who I'm sure you know, who was like a daily vlogger who is now wildly successful because of it. So he had started this daily vlog, and he kind of created this group of other aspiring creators who were kind of got inspired by Casey, but were also wanted to make YouTube their career. So a lot of the people that kind of started watching this person, Cody, were kind of in the realm of vlogging and making content that revolves around themselves. So he started to gain quite a popular following because there was a lot of aspiring creators that wanted to make vlogs. And it got to the point where I think he was at like 2,500 subscribers. And he had created this Facebook group called NoSmallCreator. And the idea behind NoSmallCreator is that the act of creating something is so big and such a big deal that pairing it with the word small is a oxymoron. And that like nothing that you create should be considered small, because anything you create could affect hundreds or even thousands of people. So a lot of people backed him on this idea because, yeah, a lot of people, you know, it's something that you could stand by. Like, even though I'm a small channel, like that doesn't necessarily mean the worth of my content is small. So he started to like get this mass following of passionate people that were excited about making videos. And meantime, he continually put out daily videos, and he did something similar to that we did with Colin and Samir, where he would make videos talking about other creators. One specifically, Peter McKinnon, who is this other creator who now is like 4 million subs, I think. And he's a photography YouTuber that focuses on photography tutorials. And his work is extraordinary and he's really good at what he does. But Peter McKinnon at one point saw one of Cody's videos, saw the work that he put in and the dedication to put out daily videos consistently, and invited him out to Toronto to make a video with him. The video happened, and Cody went from having 2,500 followers to 42,000 subscribers on YouTube, all within like 24 hours. And a lot of the people that were there from day one knew the excitement that Cody was feeling because they were following him along on this journey. They knew who Peter was because of Cody's daily vlogs, and NoSmallCreator blew up inherently because Cody got all these new followers, and there were all these other people that were trying to be creators that fell right into this NoSmallCreator category. And that's how NoSmallCreator got so big. So when we went to VidCon to see what it was all about, one of the things that we wanted to do was focus on this NoSmallCreator group, because we knew that a lot of the people that are in that group kind of have the same like aspirations that we do. And we knew that we could find a lot of cool filmmakers and maybe even friends in that group that we could connect with. And so we did. And that's what we set out on VidCon to go out and find these people who we think could be really big and aspiring creators that we wanted to try to give some recognition to.
By chance, was that first recommended video of Cody Wanner? I interviewed Casey Neistat.
That is the one that I saw. Yeah. Is that, did you see that one as well?
Yeah, that's the first video that put me onto Cody Wanner as well. So I just figured might as well take a shot and see if that was the same video.
That was the one.
But you guys eventually met Cody, right?
Right. Yeah. So Cody knew that he was on a wave. Soon thereafter, the Peter McKinnon thing, he hit creator on the rise. YouTube put him on the YouTube trending page. So it was kind of a whirlwind of kind of all the stuff that was happening to him at once. That's how he kind of skyrocketed within a short period of time. But he had obviously already caught our attention before all this happened to him, and we had caught his attention as well. And he wanted to continue riding this wave that he was on. So, the big thing to say about Cody is that he had taken on this huge task, which was daily vlogging. So every day he was putting out a video. And I mean, and you know, these are it was no small task. Every video, you know, was pretty well crafted. So there was this energy behind that entire year that he was daily vlogging. There was this energy behind wanting to check in. It was like the Truman Show, like being able to go on his channel and see what is Cody doing today. You know, and it's always a day delayed. So you're watching him, what his day was like yesterday. But essentially, you're following somebody in real time over the course of a year, which is a lot more exciting than I would have thought it would be. So that said, he decided to take his daily vlog and hit the West Coast and collaborate for a week, every day for a week, with members of the NoSmallCreator community, and we were one of them. In fact, we were the last ones. We were his Friday collaboration. So when we met him, for us, obviously, it was really cool to meet him. But that's when we started to realize that there was this feeling, this kind of indescribable feeling of knowing someone digitally and then meeting them in real life. This is a feeling we call it from digital to real, that has since we become really tickled by. And we see it every time when we go to a lot of conferences, conventions, and we basically get to see our digital friends all the time in real life. And there's something about that feeling that we wanted to articulate ourselves. So when we collaborated, we made a series of videos and revolving around Cody, and one of them was about that digital to real feeling. As far as the collaboration day goes, so when two YouTube channels get together, you basically are saying, let's meet and you make content on whatever you want to make content on, and I'll do the same. And then we'll try to co-release the videos at the same time. And it's essentially two perspectives on the same thing. So we wanted to show them a good time, and we decided to make it a fear-based episode on our end. So we found out what his fears were. We asked them, and one of them was heights. So the climax of our video is us taking him on a helicopter ride of Long Beach, and it was at golden hour. And I think the guy that the pilot was kind of listening to what we were saying before we got in and realizing that this was kind of a big deal for us. I mean, we had the camera, he had camera, we had a camera, and he's like, do you want me to take the doors off? Like, yes. So we're up there with no doors on this helicopter, and we're just making some memories and making some fun content. And that was kind of the climax of everything, that whole storyline of stumbling on his video, to the NoSmallCreator community, to now, we're however many feet off the ground, hovering in the sky with this guy, establishing a friendship.
And then was it with Cody that you guys met Yes Theory?
Yeah, that was kind of, I don't want to say a fluke, but it was kind of more of a like a weird thought that we had, that somehow we converted into reality. Since this is, Yes Theory Yes Theory is a huge channel. They're at like 4 million subscribers, but their whole thing is they basically challenge themselves to put themselves out of their comfort zone by doing these ultimate dares that involves them going to different countries and interacting with strangers. And seek discomfort. They encourage you to seek discomfort. That's their tagline. So that kind of weird thought that hit us at the time, I mean, we're still a small channel. If we got started in April, it's kind of weird. Going back to the Colin and Samir thing for a second, when we met them, I mean, if you can imagine a YouTube page that was just a white blank page with just like 4 to 6 videos, maybe 5 videos up, 5 little thumbnails. And that was our page at the time when we met Colin and Samir. And then soon thereafter, now this is like a couple months later, not that many more videos later, now we're thinking that we can meet Yes Theory and have them participate in our video where we show Cody a good time. And the correlation was that since they're all about seeking discomfort and our video is a fear-based video, how cool will it be to introduce Cody to the Yes Theory guys? So we reached out to them, and it was cut to the montage of us trying every possible way to reach them, and we made it happen. Somehow we made it happen. We got to meet Amar for the first time. Amar is one of the 3 Yes Theory guys. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you said one of the big things for you guys now is digital to real. And another time you guys did that, I talked about how it was VidCon that was a big moment for you guys. And also VidSummit was pretty big for you as well, where you met a ton of other creators in real life. And I think I heard you guys say somewhere you produced 4 videos in 12 days.
Yeah, so that actually was right towards the tail end of us collaborating with Cody. We had we had put out that digital to real video, which was, we put it out that Friday that we had collaborated with Cody, because he had done a meetup in Beverly Hills that Wednesday. So we had like 2 days to make a video and put it out. So we put out that video the day we're going to collaborate with Cody, and we ended up editing it up until that very morning. And then we published it, and then it was like, okay, it's published. Let's get in our car and start planning this collaboration with Cody. So we were kind of like in this delusional mindset, and we go and do our collaboration. The day's great. We meet Yes Theory. We do all these exciting things. But then Cody, being a daily vlogger, he puts out his video the very next day. So we watch it, and it's a very exciting experience for us because we made Cody's vlog. But now it's like, okay, we have to put out our video because it's a collaboration, and now people are waiting to find out, let's see Methodbox's side. So we're scrambling, and I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 days later that we finally put out our version of the collab, which we ended up doing even more stuff. Like we went and shot more footage for it, and ended up being like this bigger thing than just the collaboration in of itself. So that was a lot.
Just to say something real quick, the idea too is that we wanted to make something that was different. So it was a clear cut case of us getting in our own heads, which when you're a YouTuber, or I'll even just say somebody who's trying to build an online whatever on whatever platform, you, having observed ourselves in this journey, I realized that it's like a lot of self-inflicted anxiety that happens. People probably don't care as much as you do, but for you, you have this standard of what the quality of what you want to put out and like the consistency. And so there's this, and YouTube is partly to blame, which is a great thing, really. I mean, it's the algorithm, you know, your overall presence and your, you know, how much YouTube itself, the beast, the algorithm will promote you and get you on the homepages of other channels has a lot to do with how consistent you are. So that's why it's not encouraged to take hiatuses. You have to basically just create content, create content. So that was a case of us being in our own heads and realizing, well, we have to make something different than what Cody already put out, and we have to make it on brand with us. And one more point I'll make about these videos that Nathan's are talking about, these 4 videos, is we do have a standard for what we want to put out. So these aren't simple videos. I mean, they take a lot of work on our end. They're basically mini docs. Every one of our videos is a mini documentary. And so when we finish one video, I mean, we need a little bit of a break. So to go back to creating 4 videos in 12 days with essentially 4 short films, I mean, we were a machine and we were not sleeping. That's like the kind of the gravity of that feeling.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask, with like the amount of work that you guys put into your videos, like you said, they're like mini documentaries every time you shoot them. And then after producing 4 in 12 days, I was going to ask if burnout has ever something you've experienced. Because I feel like over the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen quite a few stories pop up with creator burnout. So I was asking if that's something you guys have ever experienced, or if you've been fortunate enough to kind of avoid it.
Yeah, that is something that's popped up a couple times within our journey. And the first time it popped up was when we finished those 4 videos, because it felt like such a crazy task that we had come from finishing. And we just had to take a break because it was very hectic past few 12 days, a week and a half. And it was a lot on us mentally, physically. And I mean, if you look at us back then, it was not, it wasn't healthy for us to be putting in that much work without getting the amount of sleep and time away from our laptops, I guess, that every human needs. So we did take a break, and we consider that break like our summer vacation. We came back with a video called Post or Be Forgotten, where we explained that idea of, if you don't post, you kind of get out of people's psyche. And then it's that kind of feeling that you kind of bring on yourself. And it's like Jonathan said, it's self-inflicted. And at the end of the day, people probably don't care as much as you care, but it can be scary when it feels like something that you've been building for a while, people don't care about anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's all under the theme of relevancy, wanting to feel relevant. But and part of that is self-inflicted, but yeah, again, part of that is a reality of the algorithm. I mean, even Instagram has that algorithm thing going on where it favors more consistent posters than not. So it is a real thing.
I would say one of the things that has helped us not get into that creative rut where we feel burnt out is when we kind of get into a groove of things, when we're kind of creating something every day, whether that be kind of like for a YouTube channel or like putting something on Instagram or Twitter, just interacting with people on social media that we've connected with throughout this YouTube journey. I think doing that, actually, one of the people that I've met via Twitter. His name is Patrick Tommaso. He created this mug specifically for me that says a creative activity a day keeps the depression away. And I got it because I feel like that resonates with me on such a deep level, because I know exactly what he means by that, that it's true. If you do something every day that can kind of keep your mind off like being lethargic and lazy, and you're kind of have your mind, at least if you're creative, in that creative space, I think it's really hard to fall into a burnout when you're doing something that you love every single day.
And for me, coping with burnout has a lot to do with moderation. It's coming up with a good workflow, and that complements your life, your everyday life, and just getting into a groove with that. That's ultimately the way. You don't want to work above your means. You need to know what you're capable of and be okay with when you don't deliver outside of that. For us, we had to just be okay with, it looks like we're not going to post a video this week. Like, okay, we had to just be okay with that feeling. And ultimately, it just makes life a lot easier on yourself, when you aren't so hard on yourself.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Jonathan and I tend to struggle with sometimes is when we get an idea for a video, it's like we'll go 110% at it. Like we'll edit it, we'll pull all-nighters, versus like maybe spending an hour a day every day editing. So rather than us kind of like treating it like a marathon rather than a race, I think we always just kind of fall into that race mentality where it's we'll spend countless hours working on a video, put it out, and then take that needed break, and then take a break for long enough to where it's like, okay, now I have to spend countless hours working on another video. So I think we just have to break that vicious cycle at some point.
Mm-hmm. And I did want to ask about what happens when you do get that idea. Like, first off, where did the idea come from? And can you kind of walk me through that process of the whole process of your video, from idea to upload, like the whole creative process?
Right. So to answer that question, we have to, because ultimately we're choosing, ideas are everywhere. We get them all the time. And I think everybody gets ideas all the time. And some of us have the wherewithal to actually write those into a list where we have to sit down and say, okay, which idea are we going to act on? Well, good thing we have this list. I think the interesting thing isn't necessarily the how to come up with an idea. It's when we do choose how or which idea we're going to act on. And that has a lot to do with topicalness. What's been interesting to me on this YouTube journey of content creating weekly or trying to go weekly is at any given moment, we're at a very malleable state. I mean, there's a lot to take into account. There's pop culture. For example, Apple a couple weeks ago just released a new iPhone 11. So it's like, oh, hey, we should make a review video soon, and we know that that's on our menu. Well, all of a sudden we're engaging with the real world. It's like, so should we make a video about the iPhone 11, or should we make? If you're a successful YouTube channel, you probably have at least a couple of series that you're known for, so that people know what to expect from you. So you're constantly kind of bouncing between your series, where you might make a video that's more in line with one series than the other. So in this example, do we make a video that's more iPhone 11, or do we stick to the plan where we were going to make a video on with Jacob Kelly because we recorded this thing last week or whatever it is. So it's this constant it's like a committee between the two of us where we're deliberating over what's best for the channel at any given moment. And then that's when we go to our list and then we say, okay, this is the video that we should focus on next. And we should shoot to try to get it out by this date in order for it to be relevant, because maybe we do all this work and then, if we're late to pull the trigger on it, it's not going to be relevant. It's not going to be searchable anymore. So yeah, we're constantly playing with real world and pop culture in that sense.
The way our process works is once we actually land on an idea that we were going to go ahead and like turn into an actual video, it usually starts with us kind of thinking about what the story is going to be, how we're going to make it so we can get people interested in, and then we'll start with the script. I guess it depends per video. Sometimes we come up with the script or like the story in the edit, which those videos end up taking a lot longer because you have to basically create an entire story with the footage that you have versus other times where we have a script and we have like a specific shot list, or we know the kind of how the story is going to pan out. And then when we take it into the edit, it's a lot easier. But once we get past that like production stage, we usually think about how we can get whatever shots that we're going to need, how to make them the most interesting and how to make them the most fun. So we'll usually try to use Los Angeles to our advantage, go out and use like the scenery or just the atmosphere. But other than that, me and Jonathan, once it comes to finishing the video, we're like a tag team. We go back and forth editing on the videos a lot of the time because we are editing very late at night because we treat it like a race. It's like, okay, I'm going to sleep for 2 hours. You edit this, and then I'm going to sleep, do this thing, and then I'm going to come in and color, and then I'll tag Jonathan in and come and mix. And that's what it's usually like until it's time to post. And it's funny because by the time we actually do get to post the video and like we figured out the thumbnail and the title and got that all situated, it's we're exhausted at that point. But we know there's like the whole process of now we have to promote this video. We have to get people to actually get and watch it. And it's like, you don't want all your work to be in vain from and like not have anybody watch your video. So half the battle is getting people to watch it. But we actually did discover this tool fairly recently called Morning Fame, which we started to use, and that's helped us to kind of hone in on the type of videos we should be making for our channel, as well as how to get specific videos to rank. So Morning Fame is this like this keyword research tool. It's also like an analytical tool made for YouTubers by some popular like YouTube growth channels that are on YouTube. They got together and created this online tool that'll tell you specifically how to title and thumbnail your videos so they rank within like search, and you're able to compare your video to other people's videos that are ranking. So it'll break it down for you like on a very rudimentary level, how to structure your video and how to present and package your video so people will actually watch it. So that's something we've been experimenting with lately and have been trying to see if it actually works. Hopefully, I mean, we tried it with our newest video, and we're going to try some other stuff out as well, because there's like A/B testing where you try out experiment between different thumbnails. So right now, I would say we're at the point where we're trying a lot of experimentation and trying out new things in our process of creating videos to see like what works. So, but usually it's the Jonathan and I tag teaming, trying to come up with a video, and then us getting that video out in a very short amount of time, usually.
And I know you're still in that frame, like you said, where you're still testing and seeing what works and what doesn't. But the Methodbox videos are very unique. Like, they have a very distinct style. When you watch a Methodbox video, you know you're watching a Methodbox video. So how did you guys kind of come to that style? Was it just through the process of creating and refining it? Or was there something that you were, another style that you were kind of slightly mimicking to develop your own? Like, how did that all come to be?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of it, is that I was never into YouTube. So I think what a lot of creators end up getting caught up on is they'll see a successful channel and then they'll try to emulate that. And that there was none of that happening on our end, because up until Nathan coming out here, for me, I always had my nose up to YouTube, because that's not where filmmakers go. That's what I thought. And was very wrong, by the way, on that. That's exactly where you go. That's exactly where you build a community and a audience base, and it ultimately becomes a window into your life as an artist, you know? So for me, there was nobody to mimic, because I wasn't, into the YouTube world. So it was clearly just, what kind of art do we want to make? And I think a lot of maybe the flavor that Methodbox has, it's a down the middle, it's a collaborative effort. But for sure, obviously my experience in film and just being older and working at this craft for, 10 to 15 years now at this point, has lent itself nicely to the kind of videos we have. There's also some, key personality traits that we both need to have in order for us to work. I think for me, I'm very like anal about like having it be a certain quality, and being thorough with how we treat the edit. Editing is really a big part of our videos. So, Nathan described maybe since the process is so different per video, one of the ways to make a video can be where you go and just shoot a bunch of footage, and then in the edit you're kind of figuring out the story. So like having that personality trait of, okay, I'm going to be super type A and thorough with this. All of a sudden you're seeing all the opportunities that you have within the footage, and you're crafting the best possible thing that you can. And then Nathan's got his personality traits to add to this, his knowledge of the YouTube space and where to navigate the ship toward. And, sometimes he'll veto an idea that I think is a brilliant idea. And then we end up finding this happy middle ground that neither of us would have come up with. And, Nathan is, for it being down the middle, we're both learning a lot. Nathan's learning. I mean, Nathan's a young guy. He just turned 21. When we started our YouTube channel, he was 19. So already we've seen leaps and bounds, him excelling at being an editor. This last video, this coffee video we just put out, he produced it himself. And people love that video. He had some creative choices that he wanted to make with some split screen ideas. And so all that to say that right now there's definitely a vibe of, there's like a mentor mentee vibe, but pretty soon here, I mean, we're going to each be producing our own videos side by side. And realistically, we'll be able to put out a video a week, like without fail, because we're both working on our own videos. And, Nathan's going to be a powerhouse editor, where everything he makes, I'm going to be proud of, so.
I remember Jonathan mentioning in the beginning of this podcast, he had said that who knows where Tech Hunt would be where if we hadn't started this collaborative YouTube channel. And true that, I mean, maybe it could have 1 million subscribers. Who knows? I mean, you don't know, there's no way to know. But I think at the end of the day, I am happy with the decision that I made to kind of end that channel and create this new channel with Jonathan, because like he said, it is every day I'm learning something new. And even those times where I do get frustrated or I don't agree on like a choice in the edit, I realize that through all these things or like disagreements that I have, there is a lesson in all of it. And if I just even take a step back and look at where I was a year ago, like this last video that I had edited, that's probably not something I would have been able to edit a year ago by myself. So I think whenever I do get into those times where it is kind of like I want to make more of a stylistic choice, for example, or something that's more trendy but isn't necessarily timeless, and I get frustrated because Jonathan doesn't want to do something like that, I sometimes do need to take a step back and realize like I'm learning filmmaking and true storytelling on like a cinematic level, not some YouTube like vlog level. And I got to realize that sometimes like that stuff, although it may in theory look cool or like sound cool, over the long run, it's a better option to stick to the more honed stuff that's kind of known to work. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I was going to ask, you guys kind of mentioned a couple times you'll have disagreements and stuff, or you'll butt heads on different stylistic things. So how do you work through that? Because like you said, you both have two different personalities with different backgrounds. So when you come to an impasse where you both want different things, how do you work through it? What's that compromise?
Well, so at the end of the day, we have to realize that we both want whatever decisions or arguments that we're having, it's for the betterment of the channel. And we both realize that it's because we want to excel the channel positively. So usually like the disagreements that we have, it's more of coming from a place of like, how can this be better than that? Versus like, I don't think we should do that because that can hurt us. So a lot of the time it's, I would say that although we do sometimes get into like arguments, most of the time they turn out positive, and at the end of the day, we're kind of understanding of each other. Like we do want to eventually like make this a better channel than it currently is?
I think what it ends up being is that, let's just say there's a situation where we both have completely opposing views on the direction of a certain choice, creative choice. I think there's a lot of realizing that each of us, like there's truth, there's something right about what each of us is saying. So we have to be really conscious of trying to find a happy middle ground where we can accomplish both of those things. Yeah, but if for whatever reason we can't agree, which I guess it has happened a couple times, we by default I think we end up just going to the older guy, to me, to say, hey, this is just where we're gonna go, and then we just kind of agreed on that. You know, every show, every successful show that's out there on whatever platform, you know, there has to be a consistent vision behind the whole thing. We mentioned earlier that our channel has to have an arc to it. And a lot of that has to be in the tone of it too. Like you even said it a little while ago, when you know you're watching the Methodbox episode. I'm really big on that. Like I'm really conscious of that, of knowing of our body of work, and knowing that something that we make has to fit within that tone, that vibe. And if something doesn't feel that way, I'm not going to be okay with it. And we're going to get it until it feels right, until it feels like something that's on brand and to the caliber that we want. So ultimately, I guess I will have final say if it ever comes to that. But that's been rare that we haven't been able to compromise on our ideas.
That's fair. And then, so what we're kind of discussing now is like when it comes to the art of the video, but another really important aspect of YouTube, and I think you guys alluded to it earlier, was kind of the math and the science side of it. So what are some of your tips that you guys have learned along the way when it comes to trying to get views to your channel, whether it be thumbnails, SEO, the title of your video? What are some things you've picked up along the way?
One of the things that I think is important is to try to, when you're crafting a video, you want to try to be answering a question, and hopefully a question that someone hasn't even thought of, that you're presenting this question to them and they're like, oh, I do want to learn about that. So whatever the video is that we're making, we try to phrase it in a way that sparks curiosity to our viewers. That way they're actually interested in it. So a big thing is take something like, here's a random thought that I had. The Joe Rogan podcast is a podcast I listen to a lot. And I started thinking about how he's gotten this big following of young men that listen to his podcast. And it's almost like a religion. And I started thinking about that idea of Joe Rogan podcast or Joe Rogan experience being like the modern day religion. And I'm sure that's a thought someone else has had. And I thought it was an interesting enough thought to write it down, and maybe we'll make a video about it. So, and that's like usually the way it goes is, if it's something that I would be interested in watching, then usually there's probably someone that's like me out there that would also be interested in watching that very same thing, similar thing. And if they're interested in watching that and interested in that specific thing that I'm interested in, chances are other things that I'm interested in, for example, like this whole YouTube thing, like they'll go to our channel and some of the videos that they see will kind of be in the same realm of that specific video.
Something that I've learned about the whole SEO world is, so Nathan said earlier, you make a video and that's half the battle. The other half is getting people to see your work, all the work that you did. So much of it is the packaging. I guess we can't emphasize enough just how important the title and description are, and the thumbnail. The thumbnail is the one sneak peek into what this video could be about. And ideally, the thumbnail itself is so clickable that people will just click on it. And because you are competing, let's just say you made a video like our last video, the best coffee in LA. And let's just say you search that. and now you've landed onto a YouTube page with an endless stream of videos that have to do with that. Well, which thumbnail are you going to click on? I mean, there's so many facets to it, right? It's like, do you have a close up of a human face in there? Are there poppy colors? Does it look cinematic? Does it look like a collage? And does all of that play into the branding of your channel, or is it just specifically, are you trying to get it clicks? You have to find the happy middle ground within all of that. But then as far as the title and description goes, I mean, there's an art to that too. You want to be able to rank, and not just within the video itself, but within your channel. I mean, ultimately you're making videos every however often, and you're feeding data to the algorithm. And the thing is, YouTube wants to work with you. It wants to know, where should I put this video? Where should I suggest this video? YouTube wants to keep people on YouTube watching YouTube videos. And if your video is good and it has a high retention rate, which is something you can monitor in your analytics, it's going to want to show it to people. It just needs to know where to show it. So when you're feeding it the data, the time to do that is in the description, is in the title. But there's kind of two elements to a title. Let's say there's the human element, which is what's going to get someone to click, what's the clickbaity part of it. And we're not necessarily saying that, hey, go make clickbaity titles. It should be true to what your video is about, but you need to package it in a certain way that's going to adhere to someone's humanity. It's going to make them want to click on it. But then you also need to have an aspect of the algorithm, of like the machine part, where now what's the data that I need to know so that I know where to place this. Now, if you're making videos that are like of a channel like ours, for example, that where we're essentially investigative journalists that are making videos about whatever we're interested in, that happen to be in LA. And one week we're making videos about Colin and Samir, and the next week we're making videos about the best coffee in LA. Well, YouTube doesn't know what to do with a channel like that. Where, like, let's just say it was a tech review channel like Nathan had in the past, where it's like, okay, I know exactly what this channel is and I know exactly what to do with your channel. So, some advice we've gotten in the past on like a more variety channel, vlog channel like ours is you have to make videos at least that are consistent within the channel. So that is to say, all right, we just put out a video that's the best coffee in LA. Well, we're going to, in the future, have to make more videos that are the best of something in LA. And then the algorithm can start to see, okay, there's like 3 things that you're ultimately feeding me, and I kind of know what to do with your channel now.
And then, as I don't want to use the term smaller creator, but as someone with not as many subscribers, you're making these changes and you're testing these different things out. Is there like a little bit of level of self-doubt? Because depending, like in my case, like I make all these changes to the YouTube I have for my podcast, but I have such a small subscriber base and such a small click through on my videos. Just not as many people watch my videos on YouTube for the podcast. So when I make these strategic changes, I'm kind of doubting whether they're working or not, because I'm not necessarily seeing the results someone with hundreds of thousands of subscribers will notice when they make changes to their channel. So is there ever a level of self-doubt with being a YouTuber that's still on the rise?
All the time. Still, I don't think that will leave. I think when you become a channel with a lot of subscribers, even more so, because you're really wondering if you make a slight change to your channel, it'll probably to you feel like a huge pivot. And the thing is, there's no way to know, right? There's no way to measure viralability. You can look at the analytics all you want, and you can try to catch lightning in a bottle and try to recreate. Like we have a bird scooter video that hit 20,000 views. It's like, all right, do we make more videos like that? I think that's where it can lend itself nicely to actually being beneficial. Is to like, hey, make more videos like this. But as far as the tweaks you're making, I mean, all you have are those analytics, and which is, which we didn't have, even 5 years ago to this extent. Now, YouTubers back then had to just, it was a crapshoot, make changes, put something out, and hope for the best. So at least we do have that data, but ultimately we don't know. We don't know if making these tweaks. I mean, we recently just completely rechanged a lot of the thumbnails on our channel, and like to make them higher quality and more clicky and more cohesive within our page. And we don't know. We don't know if that actually did anything.
I mean, I would say that there are for sure like videos that we know perform better than others, and like we know to like kind of shy away from those kind of videos. So I say, I mean, I would kind of disagree. I would say we do have an idea of like what does and what doesn't work. For example, like our Best of LA episode that we just put out, it's underperforming. It's got less than 200 views, which is pretty low for our channel. So we kind of have to think about why that is, and the reason for that may be, well, we're kind of alienating the audience to people that are in LA. But then you have to also take into account like best coffee in LA. That's something that a lot of people are probably searching for. So it's like, yeah, it's a delicate balance that we're playing with constantly that we have to are always trying to figure out.
That's fair. And I wanted to kind of ask you guys about other social media as well, because I feel like you guys are mainly on YouTube, but there's also in terms of strategy with promoting it on other socials. So I just kind of went through some of the biggest social networks and stuff and kind of see how important it is to your overall strategy and what your strategy is on that platform, with the first one being Instagram.
Yeah. So, I mean, the name of the game is you have one platform that you're ultimately trying to build your brand on, and that's where you want to funnel everyone to. And everything else becomes peripheral to that. But that said, you do have to contribute to it. And when someone watches that video, that year in review video, and they were on that Instagram story journey with us, for which ended up being like a 3-day thing, it makes it that much more worthwhile to watch it because you were there in the edit with us, and then you do watch the extent of like how dense that cut was, because you know what went into it. You appreciate it a little bit more, and then as far as the whole making content for other platforms, I think what Nathan and I ultimately decided to agree on was, as long as, yes, we should be omnipresent and we should make content that platform wants you to make. So for example, Instagram wants you to be more documentative on the stories so that people are following with you on a day-to-day thing. As long as it's not time consuming to the point where it's taken away from what we want to be doing, which is make videos for on YouTube, yes, you should definitely try your best. It's a discipline and it can feel like work and that cannot be fun, but you should be on Twitter commenting on things. You should be on Instagram documenting your day. You should be doing these things if your goal is to be omnipresent.
Yeah, and I would say that we use those platforms more to showcase our personality. So that way, when people do watch videos on our main platform, which is YouTube, they feel some sort of connection with us. They feel like they do know us on a deeper level than just like us presenting something on YouTube.
And that's part of the whole 1,000 true fans thing. It's not, you really don't want, I mean, great if you have the 4 million subscribers, but if you have a certain amount of a fan base of supporters, we don't even like to say fans, just say supporters, people that support you and are just down with you no matter what, you know, having that solid core group is leaps and bounds better than having superficial high subscriber count.
No, I completely agree. And the 1,000 True Fans is Kevin Kelly's thing. I completely like that's something I'm a big subscriber to. And just like there's that story that came out recently of the influencer with like 2.6 million followers or something like that on Instagram that couldn't sell 36 t-shirts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just plays into that like realistically the numbers don't mean everything. It's more so the connection you can build with people on an individual basis.
Right.
And speaking of building connection on an individual basis, that's kind of your strategy when it comes to Twitter, right? Like it's not necessarily to push your videos as much. It's more so to kind of connect with other creators.
Right. And so we use it like how we use Instagram, and that's more of just like a social media platform to connect rather than promote. Because I feel like throughout Twitter, we've met a lot of people that we've gone to eventually meet in real life that that we really have become genuine friends with that we wouldn't have otherwise met. And because something like Twitter exists, you're able to kind of find mutual friends within each other. You're able to discover people that might have been in the same kind of social circles as you, but you may not have realized it. So I think it really has a huge potential and power, and we've seen that kind of come to fruition.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of connecting with other creators and bringing people together, I wanted to ask you about the creative space that you guys are kind of working on. It's part of, I think it's the chapter 2 portion of Methodbox, as you guys are going to try and you're going to make your own creative space, similar to like a 368 in LA. So where did that idea come from, and where are you guys along the journey of that so far?
Let me think. I'm trying to like really think of like the first time I had that idea of creating a creative space. I think, well, okay, so I think it really started when I put a desk in my bedroom back in Illinois, when I was like, oh my God, I can actually have a spot to focus on whatever it is I want to create. And then I moved out to LA, and Jonathan and I were trying to start this YouTube channel, and we had a roommate that was like always watching cartoons in the living room, and it was frustrating when we were trying to edit. And we were like, all right, man, we need, something's got to happen. So then that's when the journey really started, I think.
Yeah, I think it boils down to two things. It boils down to every artist needs a space to work, whether that's an office or a studio or your bedroom or whatever. You need a space, a designated space. And the other thing is, this goes back to that feeling of digital to real, is you want to be surrounded by artists that are going to inspire you, that are going to work side by side with you on their own stuff. But there's something about being in that energy that really resonates with us. So combining those two, well, what if we had an office that was also this space where other people can create at the same time? Well, what if we can make that a reality? And I you know, there are all these other facets to it. Maybe we'll turn into a production company. Maybe this thing will become so big where it's a place where people can pass through. We don't know yet the logistically where it will take, because we have looked into it a lot from a real estate point of view. And the reality is it's hard. It's extremely hard to find a place in this city, Los Angeles, where we can. There's one place that we're looking at right now that is on Highland. I would say that it would be, I guess, Hollywood, like South Hollywood area. And, you know, it's $6,000 a month. And then if you want the parking lot, it's $7,000 for the month. So it's like, okay, well, we're not going to cough up that much money, even if we could. So all of a sudden it becomes a logistic thing. Well, all right, what if we essentially partner with other people, and then, you know, we all put money in the pot? Okay, but then we're essentially subleasing, because if for whatever reason one person decides, hey, I want out, now there's a desk open for that month. Well, someone's got to come up with that money. So these are all logistical things that we're trying to figure out, and realizing that it's tough to do when you don't have money allocated for that. But our hearts are very much into it. We want this creative space.
Yeah, don't be discouraged. It's still coming.
That's awesome. I'm definitely going to follow along the channel. And so what are your plans then for the channel? Because that's kind of your plans for the creative space. But when it comes to the channel specifically, what are your future plans for it right now?
Right now, I would say we're just focused on getting back into that groove. Now that we've kind of put out a year in review, we're at that point where we put out one other video, which was this coffee video that we just put out. But we're at this kind of phase in our channel where we're kind of have a blank slate. We can make whatever content we want to put out. For a long time, we kind of had this backlog of videos that we needed to put out, but now we're finally at this point where we're asking ourselves every week, what's the next video we're going to put out? And that's fun. I like that. I like that feeling, but we just got to finally get into that groove where Jonathan's working on his video, I'm working on my video independently. And every week we're constantly putting something out, staying in on top of all our social medias, and just bringing a dominant presence in this social media landscape.
We want to make content that more and more people are seeing, because we do, as with most artists, I mean, not only do you want to express your perspective on this life, on this existence, you also want to provide value. So the more people that we could do that with, the better. And one of the beauties of YouTube is that it's exponential. It works exponentially. So once you start getting the ball rolling, I mean, if you think about it, you 1 week you have 49 videos up, and then the week following you have 50 videos up, and then another video up the next week. I mean, that in itself is exponential, because all of those videos are still working for you as far as your reach goes. So that's why it's a lot easier for a channel that has, for Casey Neistat to hit 10 million subscribers, and it takes him, 8 years to do that, but then it takes him, 8 months to hit the 11 million subscriber mark, because all of a sudden it works exponentially. You're in the algorithm. And so all that to say that the hardest is the beginning, which is a great metaphor for any project that you want to get off the ground. You have to just get started and get going and be active, and then things start. You're pushing that mountain, or that rock, that boulder up the mountain, until one day you're not. It's just moving on its own down the mountain, and it won't stop, and it's getting bigger and bigger. So we're just going to keep grinding and keep making our content until we hit that. And all of a sudden we're reaching a lot of people, and then it's that much more rewarding to make our art.
And so did you say you guys are going to start creating videos independently? Like, so Jonathan will do 1 week and then Nathan will do the other?
Right. And of course we're consulting each other's video, but this is a collaborative process through and through from the very beginning, from us picking, okay, you're going to work on this video, I'm going to work on this video. But the way we see it is there's going to be a head producer each week. We're each going to produce a video while consulting, taking breaks to look at what the other one's doing. But the idea behind that is two things. One, we both need to be creatively satisfied. And two, we need to produce content weekly. Like there can't be these breaks anymore. So one of us is going to be more ahead than the other on any given week. So we say, okay, this week we're going to do this video because this one looks like it needs a little bit more work. And the way to do that is for us to both be on the mission at the same time.
That's fair. And I wanted to ask, so you said recently how you recently put out that first year on YouTube recap video. I want to ask, looking back on your first year, can you kind of put into words the top 3 or 5 tips when it comes to branding, especially for people when they're just starting out? Like, where should they start when they want to start solidifying their brand online?
You don't necessarily need to know what you want to build in the very beginning, because a lot of this is learning what you're going to like. But it definitely helps. It's like the whole college thing. If you don't know what you want to go to college for, I mean, it's still start going to college. You can get your gen eds done. But it definitely helps if you do know going into it what you want to do, because you're that much ahead of the game. I would say, let's say you haven't started building the thing yet. If you do know what it is, and maybe it's led by passion, hopefully it is led by passion, because that's what's actually going to get you through conquering this endeavor in the long run. You can now go and research as much as you can other, I don't want to keep saying channels, because this relates to any artist doing anything, but other people that are doing what you're doing, that are succeeding in it. You can go then research what is working, and you can just become a student of everything, and then start off with a plan. That way you're not just kind of shooting in the wind in the beginning. That would be my number one tip. And then once you're actually in the thick of it, be okay with molding, because you're going to build an audience base, and they're going to want to see certain things. Like with us, we were a lot more mysterious in the beginning on our channel. So one of the consistent feedback points was always, we want to know who you guys are. We want to know. So then we started a vlog series. That's one of our 3 main series is the vlogging. So and that was specifically meant to show more of our personality. So be okay with adapting to what people want to see from you, and that's going to be part of the brand building process.
I think that's the thing that people often forget is like you have to listen to your audience. That's one of the most important parts. Of course, you have to make content for yourself, but you also have to make content for your audience. And speaking of content, I wanted to ask, what's some content that you guys are consuming? Like whether I know Nathan mentioned he listens to Joe Rogan, but are there people on YouTube you like to watch? Like, what are you consuming currently?
So yeah, I would have to say a lot of the stuff that I do consume is on YouTube, and there are people like Joe Rogan, Matt Diavella, he's like a documentary how would you say, like a doc?
He's a cinematic documentarian self-improvement guy.
What he said. He's cool. Yes Theory, obviously. They make super fun and emotional content. I would also have to say like some of my like the New York people that the New York vloggers that I initially looked up to when I first started trying to make YouTube videos, like Sam Sheffer, Sarah Dici, those people who they've created a kind of group of vloggers and YouTubers around themselves. And I remember thinking, that's cool. I want to do something like that in LA. And so they're probably like one of the bigger inspirations for me as well.
And for me, the 3 things I bounce off of, because you should be, as an artist, you should be immersed in pop culture, and you should be aware of what's going on politically. You should know what is trending on just different things outside of the thing you're doing. So what I find myself consuming a lot of are podcasts. And yes, Joe Rogan is probably the biggest podcast I consume, mostly because he has guests he is a very curious person himself. So if he's the main character, let's say, in the story, it's good to have a main character that represents you, that's going to ask all the questions that you would be asking. But he has all kinds of guests on, from astrophysicists to comedians to whomever he has on. So podcasts are big for me. As far as YouTube goes, I watch a lot of people in our community. I watch a lot of people like Colin and Samir and people that we grew up with in the NoSmallCreator community, because it's cool to watch people grow with you, and you support them the way they support you. And then the last thing I would say is you gotta watch those shows that are successful on Netflix. You can't forget the roots of good storytelling and good cinema. The place for that now is long form streaming services, where you're watching this long form content. I just watched that show that came out in the spring. I just watched it recently, called When They See Us, because I had been meaning to, and it's essentially a 4-hour movie. And but it was great, and that director did a great job. But you have to be in the zeitgeist of what's going on while still staying curious and trying to continue honing your chops by watching what others are doing.
I think that's an interesting point. Is I feel like a lot of people, when they want to get inspired to make YouTube videos, they go to YouTube, but it's interesting to hear kind of the other side of it and go to the traditional side and draw inspiration from there to create your YouTube videos.
For sure.
That's something I would say I've been doing recently too, is because I grew up in this era of YouTube, I missed out on a lot of the classic cinema. And so that's something that I find myself doing recently. Like I've been watching The Godfather. I've been watching a lot of Tarantino films, things that really make me appreciate and realize what classic filmmaking is really like, because I was never subjected to that growing up.
I haven't really dove in too much into it either. So it's probably something I definitely think I should take the time to go through. But before we wrap up, I want to ask you guys kind of the standard questions I ask everybody. You can answer them in 2 seconds. You can elaborate on them if you want to. The first question being, you're going to dinner. You can take 3 people. It can be anybody, dead or alive. Who do you take to dinner?
All right. Nathan looks like he's thinking, so I'm going to go into this one. David Fincher. He is my favorite director of all time, and he is living, and he is awesome. I probably would take Trent Reznor from 9 Inch Nails. He's another amazing creator. And Damn, yeah. Let's throw in Joe. Let's throw in Joe Rogan. I think that'd be an interesting. You know what, Chappelle? I would throw Dave Chappelle in there. He's freaking amazing. Yeah, I guess those would be my 4 people I would bring to the table.
Oh man. Okay. So the first one would have to be probably like who I look up the most to as like a social media person and who I grew up kind of consuming their media the most. And that's Sam Shepard, just because I feel like him and I are very similar. And I would just want to pick his brain and figure out like how he did everything. The second one, I would have to say, man, I don't want to like steal Jonathan, but Joe Rogan as well, just to also I feel like he's a man. He's like a jack of all trades guy. So I could ask him about anything and he would get into a very intelligent and interesting conversation with him about whatever it is that I don't know, whatever. The third person would have to be
Jesus.
I would. Oh man,
I'm sure he'd have some interesting things.
This girl that I know, her name is Rez. She's a DJ, and just because she's the only person I've seen in concert 3 times already, and I just want to be like, hey, I love you. That's all I'm gonna say to her.
That's awesome. What's some of the best advice you guys have ever gotten?
The best advice I've just in life is stay curious.
I was gonna say that. God damn it!
Oh, no, you
I have to think of something.
I gotta stay curious is probably the because that makes you an active participant in your life, and that makes you strive to be better, and you're going to realize things about yourself as you learn more things about the world. So I would say that probably would be my number 1. I've got more stuff, but I'll let Nathan.
I don't know if this is advice, but it's something that I really think about a lot. And it's like, and it's that idea of the flaws that you see in others or that are just projections of the insecurities you have in yourself. And I think that has really stuck with me because it's something like, for example, when I'm at work, I'll like see a flaw in somebody and be like, oh man, like that's either a bad character flaw or I don't really think that's a good trait to have in a person. And I kind of like start hating on that person, like not verbally, but in my head. And then I start to realize like, wait a second, that's me. I'm like describing myself. And then that's when I have to take a step back. And I think I've realized that a lot of the time I am just seeing other people's flaws in myself. And that's not a healthy kind of mentality to have.
That's it. I've never heard anyone explain it that way before. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's something I try to think about every day, but it's hard. It's something to easily slip into.
Mm-hmm. Another person that just came to my mind that I don't know why I forgot to throw him in that round table, that dinner table, but Jordan Peterson. He's he's a good person that's got a lot of good intent and a lot of words of wisdom. He would be a great person to have on there. And in his fashion, some words of advice would be to hold yourself accountable for being of use to yourself and to others, being valuable and reliable. I think, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. What is one thing about you people would not expect?
I like to dance.
Okay.
I'm big on dancing. I'm super silly. I don't know if that comes across in our videos. But yeah, I'm kind of a weirdo when it comes to that.
Oh man, I'm trying to think. It's such a weird question because it's like you have an idea of how you project yourself onto others, but then there's also how people see you, right? And like how they interpret you. And like I don't know how much they know about me. I guess I would have to say I'm more like I'm more probably laid back and I keep to myself more than a lot of people might think I do, especially when I'm around people because around people that I'm comfortable with, because I'm like, I can be kind of a lot sometimes, I guess. But for the most part, like you'll find me in my room on my computer, just hanging out.
One of the things that was told to Nathan recently that I observed, which I thought was an interesting thought, was that his default setting is a smile. So I thought that was really telling of Nathan's personality.
That's interesting. What is one thing that's so important everybody needs to know?
You do not necessarily have to invest in Bitcoin. No. You should. You should strive to be an employer, not an employee. Okay. I think that's important.
I would say is one thing. The most important thing that I think everybody should know is that everybody you interact with is worried about themselves. So if you think that someone is kind of judging you, or you feel like you're out of place, chances are you're fine, and that person is also having those same exact thoughts about themselves.
So figure out how to make them an employee, and you'll be set.
For the final question, I'd like to flip the script a little bit. So if you had a crystal ball that you could look into, it could give you the answer to anything. What is one question you would ask that you want to know the answer to?
The meaning of life itself. I think that it sounds cliche, but what is this game that we're all playing? I'd want to know.
I feel like I wouldn't want to know that.
Really?
Yeah, because what if it's pointless?
Well, then... And
then, that everything you do is for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you would proceed appropriately, I guess.
How? What?
How would I proceed in life knowing for a fact that...
Say you live on a world where there's a world out there where there is no pain. And you know that every day you're subjected to suffering, pain, emotional, psychological.
You're saying
physical.
If there is an afterlife?
No, say there's a separate world out there. Uh-huh. But because you know that better one exists, you have hard time coping with your current one because you realize that something better's out there. It's like ignorance is bliss kind of thing.
So yeah, right. So is it better to be ignorant in bliss than not? I think in some cases, I don't know. I would want to know, even if that meant it was detrimental to my perception of this reality. Yeah,
I guess I would want to know. Oh man, I would want to know where I'm going to be in 50 years from now, because then if it's in a good place, because no matter what it is, I know that whatever I do right now isn't going to change. So I can do whatever I want. And knowing that no matter what, I'm going to be in it wherever I'm going to be 50 years from now. So I could go and do it. I could do whatever I want.
But with that in mind, if you know what you're doing in 50 years, and then could you not change something? So almost like the butterfly effect, where now you're second guessing all your decisions because you think they're going to lead to that, but you can make a decision because won't lead you there.
So whatever I see, there's a possibility of it changing.
Well, it would have to be the case then. It depends on what perspective of time you have. But if you're seeing time as already having existed, basically the whole not like Back to the Future where you create a separate space-time continuum. Let's just say it's still the same timeline. It would have to be the case that the knowledge that you got from having that question answered of where I'm going to be in 50 years has already affected you. So it's already going to play out the same whatever you do then. So, but not knowing could then create a different consequence.
So if I knew, then I could go with the route of doing whatever I want because my life would end up that way. Okay, that's what I would want.
What I'm saying is if you knew that, say you're going to be a millionaire, so you start spending your money recklessly and just doing whatever you want, then maybe you don't get there because you just assume that eventually you'll become a millionaire. You know what I mean?
But that's the perspective that you can create a different timeline then. It's like the whole that's the Back to the Future timeline. But if you go with the Terminator timeline, the Terminator timeline is that all time has already existed. So it's going to play out the way Judgment Day is going to come no matter what you do, because whether you know about Judgment Day or not, it's the fate of what's already happening within time. Yeah, we'd have to agree on how we're perceiving what movie time play are we going with?
That's fair. But on that deep note, I want to give you guys the floor. Plug everything and anything you got right now. Where can the people find you?
Cool. So we're putting out videos weekly on our Methodbox channel on YouTube. Methodbox is one word, two words that became one.
Kind of like us, Nathan.
Yeah, wow. That's so deep. You can find us on Twitter at Methodbox YT, like Methodbox YouTube. Instagram, we're posting daily. So if you want to stay up to us on a consistent daily basis, see what we're doing right now, then follow us on at Methodbox on Instagram. So I think that's it. You can also find our personals on there as well. They're in our bio. But like I said, we're trying to put out stuff weekly, trying to interact with our audience daily, and try to get this ball rolling and consistently put out videos. Now that Jonathan and I are doing one and one each week, it's a fun time in the Methodbox journey.
And we do put a lot of work into our videos, and we try to make them slippery watches so that you're kind of just taking down the river, and before you know it, it's over and you're entertained, and hopefully some knowledge and value is added for your time. And yeah, we get a little weird sometimes, and we do get a little meta, and there is some cinema in there. And if you want to see what it looks like for two brothers of two different backgrounds and generations and passions, YouTube and cinema fusing together, check us out, Methodbox.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys once again for coming on the podcast. And I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. Whether you've listened the entire way through, you've only listened to bits and pieces, I really appreciate you taking the time to check this out. Everyone, do me a favor, go and follow Methodbox on YouTube, subscribe, check them out on Instagram. I'll make sure everything's linked in the show notes down below. And if you'd like to follow me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @TheJacobKelly. Come and say hello. My DMs are always open. And if you'd like to follow the podcast, you can find us on Instagram by searching up @My Social Life Podcast, or on YouTube by searching up My Social Life. Thank you once again for listening, everybody. We'll talk soon.